Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the civil unrest. As soon as I can fix the camera here. I apologize that the videos may be a little dark. It's been cloudy for a while now, so things have been a little dark, literally. So the topic I'm going to talk about is civil unrest, and we're going to talk about it in a couple different ways. I'm going to talk about it as what is said in the Bible, but I'm also going to talk about it in what it means as far as being prepared or being ready for this event as we are starting to see. So, as we've talked about in some of the other videos, there are many instances in which civil unrest have occurred, do occur, and probably will so again. We've seen it in Ferguson. We've seen it in Baltimore. We've seen it in the Rodney King fiasco in California. It happens quite frequently. And when civil unrest begins, essentially, it normally occurs because the civilized veneer, that's what I say that we are. So actually, let me explain that first. So for me, in the way I explain this, as a society, by and large, we operate under what I call a civilized veneer. And basically that means the majority of the people have a certain set of guidelines, of rules that they follow. Yes, we have laws and stuff, but at the end of the day, there is nothing that's going to make anybody obey or disobey that law. And I've said this before in many different things. So just because the speed limit says 55 doesn't mean that everybody's going to drive 55. It is the moral compass that is within the individual that is going to have them obey or disobey whatever that rule or law is. But there is a kind of civilized set of built-in moral issues, if you will, that we typically don't break. And those come from probably all different sorts of places. I mean, our country was founded on religious principles, so a lot of it comes from the Bible. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, covet wife, etc. So these morals that are built into us, that's what I call the civilized veneer. And I call it a veneer because it's basically a surface thing. If something really bad happens, well, first off, even during this civilized veneer, there are people who do not operate under these set of guidelines, if you will. That's your criminals, mobs, gangs, people who steal, people who kill. All of those are working outside the civilized veneer. So the veneer doesn't even apply to those folks. And then there are some that are kind of probably like operating in that gray area between. They don't really necessarily break a law, but they're as close to it as they can without doing so. So all of this is the pot in which civilization exists. Okay, so when that civilized veneer is peeled back, we have the tendency to take care of our own first. So we don't. There are those of us that would steal, would kill, um, would break a law in order to take care of our family. Okay. Um, when civil unrest occurs, that veneer has been peeled back, okay, and a group have gone out to basically take the things in their own hands. Back in the old days, there used to be lynchings. You've seen them in TV shows and things. They got the news, they're going to hang the person. Typically in the old westerns, cattle thieves were strung up, horse thieves, etc. And even though they considered it a justice, vigilante justice, there was no, what's the word I'm looking for? There was no organization there, really. It was basically just chaos, okay? Civil unrest today is probably no different than it was back then. Somebody perceives a grievance to somebody else, and now they want to get even with them for doing it. Civil unrest also occurs like during storms, bad storms, when we have big natural disasters. People go out and loot. They use this as an opportunity to profit. So these are all things that occur during this civil unrest period. A lot of these disasters that we talked about yesterday in yesterday's video, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, volcanoes, when these things occur, then the civilized veneer is peeled back. And if stuff hits the fan scenario, or in the end of the world as we know it, civil unrest is going to be basically the rule. It will probably be unlikely that there will be civil rest, except in perhaps small enclaves and stuff. And that's why I think it's important that we band together, we come together as a group, and we take care of each other, okay? Because no person by themselves can stand. There's just too many factors to go on. And I will grant you that there probably are exceptions to that. So civil unrest is going to be something that happens quite frequently, especially in a stuff hits the fan scenario. When these things happen, economic collapse is another. When the economic collapse happens, those people who are not ready, those people who don't have resources saved up, those people who depend on others or the government in order to survive, are basically going to lose their minds. Okay? So, you, I hope, will take the initiative to do what is right. Okay, so I want to read a couple of things to you. When it comes to civil authority, the Bible in Romans 13 talks about we are to submit ourselves to the authorities that are over us because God has put them in place. Okay, but just like in the military, so in the military, as a soldier, I am responsible to follow the orders of those higher than me and carry those orders out, except if it's an unlawful order. Okay? We are to do the same thing. If the order that we get from the authorities is a lawful order, then we are to follow that order. But the Bible also says, God tells us that we are to obey his law over man's law. Okay? So we, as people being, getting ready and preparing for these disasters and stuff, we are responsible to take care of and to do the things that we need to do that follow what we have been instructed to do by, the Word of God. So, and you can debate that all you want, and if you have to debate it, then you may need to evaluate your moral compass. I'm not judging, I'm just saying, because there are things that we should do as people, and there are things that we should not do. And, stealing from somebody else is never justified, no matter how much you try to. Okay? I have some other thoughts on that, but, I'm not going to, I wouldn't kill anybody to take resources that they have. Now, if I find items and I'm in that situation, then I might redistribute those items. So it's a fine line. But actually getting in a confrontation, no matter who it is, and the folks that, there are groups out there that say, I'm not going to buy, food or stuff. I'm just going to buy guns and ammo and take what I need. Well, those are the folks that are absolutely wrong. Okay? That is not a plan that is setting up for civil unrest. Okay? So, but the thing I want to read to you is, if I can find it again. It says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. Okay? Now, it doesn't say that you got to wait and do nothing and that God's going to take care of it. There's kind of a joke, and it would be really a joke if it weren't kind of sad at the same time. But essentially, there was a religious man, and there was a flood, and as the floodwaters rose, he climbed up on the roof of his house, and a canoe comes by, and the guy says, jump in, we'll paddle to safety. And the man says, nope, I pray to God, and God's going to save me. So the guy paddles on. A few minutes later, a guy in the boat comes by and says, hey, jump in the boat and, we'll row to safety. And the guy says, nope, I pray to God, he's going to save me. I'm, waiting on God. So, the water's like up to his neck now. And a helicopter comes by, throws down a rope ladder and says, hey, jump on, we'll get you to safety, we'll fly you to safety. The guy says, nope, I'm waiting on God, he's going to save me. Well, the man perishes. So he makes it up to heaven, and he's like, hey, what's up? I prayed to God, and God didn't save me. He said, well, we sent a canoe, a boat, and a helicopter, but you didn't get in. We are given the opportunity to take care of ourselves, okay? All he had to do was to take one of the three opportunities he had. It's the same thing with us. We are all given the opportunity to get ourselves ready for these events that we know are going to come. And it doesn't have to be the stuff hits the fan or the end of the world as we know it, or, some catastrophic world-ending kind of event. Tornadoes happen all the time. Strong winds, hurricanes, floods, fires. all of these events happen all the time, but yet we are surprised when something happens and we don't have anything, or we can't take care of ourselves, or we have to wait on somebody else to take care of us. Why? Why are we surprised? We knew they were coming. We had the opportunity to get ready for them. We had the opportunity to make these plans that we talk about, that we never do, that are just in our head, that as soon as this stuff hits the fan, the idea that we had and thought was a plan flies out the window, or the only person who knew what was going to, what they needed to do is no longer part of the group for whatever reason. And now the people don't know what to do. So, with the civil unrest, it's going to come, just like the tornadoes, the floods, the hurricanes, snowstorms, whatever. They are going to come. So the question is, what are you going to do? Are you going to get in the boat or the canoe or grab a hold of the ladder? Or are you going to sit there and wait until the mob is at the door and, then try to figure out what's going on? Okay. So civil unrest is something that we can all plan against. Okay. So what happens if civil unrest? Okay. The first thing you want to do, if it is like something like Baltimore or Ferguson, where it's a group of folks like downtown or in a populated area, you need to get out of there. Okay. This is where the situational awareness comes in, because you start to see a big group of folks and they're starting to raise voices, starting to carry signs and stuff. That's the sign to get out of there. That's your trigger. Okay, so that's the plan. As in the plan, you have the plan for the event, then you have what's going to trigger that activation of that plan, and then you have the actions that you're going to take before, during, and after the event. Okay, so before the event, plan is to survive, or that civil unrest is the problem. The trigger is we start to see the signs that civil unrest is starting to occur. Okay, so the actions before is we keep cognizant of what's going on around us, situational awareness. If something has happened, like say financial collapse has happened, and we have, we are sheltering in place, or we have bugged out to a safer location somewhere, out in the woods, wherever they are, then that is when you activate your plan. If economic collapse occurs, if something else has occurred that is going to initiate civil unrest, then that's on your plan. So anybody that's in your group needs to know, if they see these kinds of things, this is where they're going to come and this is what they're going to bring. Okay? And the before action of that is you have identified what it is. Well, first off, you're going to identify where you're going to go. Then you're going to identify what each group or person is going to bring to that location. And then during that event, that's when you're going to set up your guard duty. So you're going to need folks 24/7 watch. Okay. Then, if it is not a end of the world as we know it event, then eventually things will subside and things will go back to quote unquote normal. And you evaluate what occurred during that time, what you may need to fix, what worked well, what didn't work. And then you're going to create or add those to your plan. And then the plan is going to be shelved for a short period of time. And then again, you rehearse the plan later. Okay. Provided we go back to normal. So those are some of the things that you can do, but some actual practical. So like if you're downtown and something happens, as soon as you see something, leave. The shortest, fastest, most direct route away from wherever this group is, because you don't want to get rolled into the mob as they are trampling downtown, wherever to raise a ruckus. If you find yourself in the middle of this bunch of people that are bent on, causing trouble, then work your way to the edge of the mob. Okay. A lot of times in these kinds of situations, you're going to see people. The mob itself is going to be focused on typically something else or someone else, whatever it is, whether it's breaking into stores, flipping over cars, setting cars and buildings on fire, whatever it is. There was a show I watched, Battle in Seattle. It was about the World Trade Organization. That's a pretty good show. And in that show, you see a lot of people. So it was supposed to be a peaceful demonstration that turned into chaos of the First Order. And in that, they started breaking glass windows. They started getting into stuff, or breaking into to buildings and things. Started setting fire, flipping over vehicles, fighting the police. All these different things that they were not really set on trying to make a point. So basically there were two groups in there. One was bent on creating havoc, and the other one was actually trying to accomplish a mission, sort of. So if you find yourself in the midst of this group, and the wife of one of the police officers found herself inside this group and she could not get out of the group because the police were on one side, the crazy people on the other, but move away from the front out to the fringes of the mob, and then use whatever cover concealment kinds of things, cars, buildings, trees, whatever, to get away from the middle of that group. Okay. Those are some things that you can do to get away from that. What you do not want to do is you do not want to try to persuade anybody that this is not what they want to do. You do not want to be confrontational with any of the folks that are participating, whether it's the police or the participants themselves, the ones that are against the police. So, and are there going to be bad on both sides? Yes, there's bad people everywhere, in the military, in the government, in the police force, but they're not all bad. But you can exacerbate that situation by trying to either fight against it or trying to change somebody's mind or opinion. At that point, they're beyond changing. The best thing you can do is to get away from the area, however, in the fastest way that you can possibly do that. Okay, so I hope these little ideas help. The best thing is to just have a plan and think this through now while you're able to think with your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that does the higher reasoning. Because once the situation develops and that fear, that stress, that situation occurs, you're not going to be able to think. The part of your brain that controls that is basically going to shut down. So focus on what you're going to do. Have a plan. I mean, I cannot stress it enough that if you do not have a plan, the old adage is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that is absolutely positively true. So I pray, I beg you to sit down today and write your plan. After you write what this plan is for, which is the event that you're going to create this plan for, the next thing that needs to be written down is what is the trigger that's going to activate this plan. Okay, what event, what condition will cause this plan to be put into action, and ensure that everybody knows what they need to do. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to talk about, what are we talking about? I'm going to talk about earthquakes. We're going to go, or actually not tomorrow. I'm going to be probably out of the pocket for a couple of days. It'll probably be after the first of the year when I come back, but when we come back, we will be talking about earthquakes, some of the things that are going on. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. But we'll also talk about some of the things that you can do to enable yourself to be ready for an earthquake. And I know there's people out there that are probably all across the country, and people are thinking, oh, I don't live in California, but I'm telling you, there is a lot of areas within the United States that, and even other countries, because hopefully we are going to be able to get to some of the other countries that earthquakes are definitely everywhere. The New Madrid Fault, which is in New Madrid, Missouri, between Missouri and Kentucky. There's fault lines that run the entire length of the Appalachian Mountain Range through New York. So it doesn't matter where you are. Tennessee has them. It doesn't matter where you are. Earthquakes are a possibility. And the fact that you don't live in California means that your buildings are probably not set to an earthquake code, which means they will not withstand nearly as much shaking as a building in California. So we're going to talk about earthquakes. We'll see, what we can do and how we can do it. If you have comments, as I've said, please post them either on the channel. You can email me at guy@greatlivingsources.com. The links will be below. My website is greatlivingsources.com. There are different blog articles and stuff that are on there. I'm starting to try to post all of these videos on my blog, along with some additional information that may or may not be in the video itself. You can also get a hold of me on Facebook. GL Sky is my pen name. And I have a web page or a Facebook page for that. I also have a Facebook page for Great Living Sources. So, if you have questions, if you don't have a plan, and you need help getting a plan created, let us know. We will be glad to help. That's what I do. It's what I know. I've done it for over 30 years probably. So, get a plan, make the plan, get a group of like-minded people who think as you do, who believe as you do, because if there's one person that doesn't, eventually that group will collapse. Okay, so stay safe, stay ready, and remember the core calm. Stay balanced. Don't let what's going on around us impact you. Couple of Bible verses I'm going to leave with you to look up. Ephesians 6:12 and Romans 12:2. So I will wish you a happy new year now, since this will probably be my last video before the new year. I wish you all the best, and Godspeed. Thank you.